Welcome back, guys. I am here in our beautiful new location with our first guest in our new location, who is also a newer member of BNI. Amanda was Borrero, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Amanda with For the Love of Events, who does wedding planning.
Yes.
So, first question I have for you is, we'll get into your BNI stuff in a little bit and the presentations and things like that. So the first question I have for you is, I know this story, but tell a little bit of people watching. How'd you get into the business?
Yeah.
What do you love about it? How'd you find your passion in it?
Yeah. So I basically got into wedding planning. I kind of got dropped into it. I knew I wanted to be in events for years, since I was probably 16 years old. So I kind of followed that path in college to get to event planning, but my main focus was to be in conferences and meetings and corporate. So once I was about 21, I got a position to be a venue manager, and they told me that the focus was going to be on corporate events, but it ended up being about 80% of my sales weddings. So I kind of got dropped into it, and as I was going through my college experience, I started my own company, and it was solely focused on weddings and events. So now I still get to dabble in a little bit of both, but that's kind of where I started.
That's good. Two things I want to point out there is, one, I kind of know this, but you said you initially didn't want to start with weddings. You wanted to do bigger events, and then it just kind of footholded you in because it just worked for you. But another thing I really want to focus on, which I think is awesome in your case, is like, not everyone gets to continue doing what they wanted to do at 16, right? Like I didn't want to be a realtor at 16. I can tell you that for sure. My dream is still attainable, and one day I'll reach it. But I think that's awesome. So for you in that particular case, I would say it's easy that you found your passion here.
Yeah.
And how has that transition been? And has anyone really highlighted that to you before? Of like, hey, you're in a really cool box because you get to do what you wanted to do as a teenager. Like, how has that been fulfilling in your adult life?
So it's funny because I'm the oldest child in my family. I'm the oldest grandchild in my family. So it kind of just it was meant to be. Everybody knew, like, even when I was younger, my aunts would joke, like, I always wanted to plan. If we slept over their house, I would be like, okay, what are we doing after breakfast and what's next? And so I've always been a planner, but didn't really know how that would really take effect in my life. And so once I hit my teenage years, one of my aunts would come down every year for this conference. And I realized it was at Lowe's Portofino Bay Hotel every year. We would spend the weekend with her. And I saw people setting up for the event, and that's really what, like, I guess sparked my interest in this actual career field. And then I was able to pretty much carry that out as I was graduating, getting internships, things like that. So it's been almost something that was like literally already in my books and in my path that I just had to really follow and take just the opportunities that came my way.
Do you see like future growth? Obviously, I'm sure you want to kind of stay in your lane and do this for as long as you can.
Yeah.
What is something that was a huge goal for you at 16 that is still attainable now? On the other side of all of the planning you've already done.
Oh, that's a good question. I think when I was at that point, I really just wanted to have a good career, and I actually never wanted to have my own business. So I think this is a huge accomplishment. I just made 6 years in business, which is still bananas to think about, but I always wanted to clock in, clock out. So I think just that transition of you don't have to work for the man, if you will, and having a business is already like a huge step in the direction that I never knew I was really going to go into. Right.
That was probably meant for you, that you just, you're a planner, but the best things for planners are things you don't plan on sometimes.
Exactly.
So it's pretty amazing. Like I feel like from a philosophical standpoint, it's like, if you're super organized and you're super orderly and you plan out a lot of things, you attract a lot of people that aren't that way. But the great thing about you is, like, you don't have to push them away. You can help them get organized. You can help them plan. And, that's a big thing for me in my business as well, is like, do you have a plan going into this sale? Do you have a plan after this sale? Because if you don't, we're going to have to talk about that. But that's awesome. I like that, and we've discussed it before. I like that you kind of were like, hey, this is what I want to do, and you just haven't stopped. Yep. So let's switch gears a little bit, because I definitely want to talk about, you just did your BNI presentation yesterday. So first, again, I talk about BNI all the time on this, and I invite everyone on that joins BNI because
Okay.
I want to highlight local businesses. So first talk about how you joined BNI, how beneficial it's been for you thus far, and then we'll get into the presentation because I really loved your presentation, all about numbers and savings. So discuss.
So BNI, I am a big advocate for networking groups. I think building relationships, like I mentioned in my presentation, is really important to be able to scale your business and just keep those relationships. You're going to keep getting referrals. So my friend invited me to BNI, and I was always, I'm curious with memberships and things like that because I usually never pay for advertising or marketing for my company. But this is the perfect place to put your marketing dollars if you have a budget for that, or just to invest in yourself. So I loved the first initial meeting that I went to. I love how structured it was because for the wedding industry, our networking events are very social, which is fine because that's what we do. But we start, we all gather, we talk, we drink, we eat, we talk more. We may have an educational piece to our networking events, but it's pretty much the same structure all around.
Right.
This was really cool because we're just getting down to business. Like you want business, I want business. Let's see how we can help each other, but also let's form the relationships in BNI in the meeting, but also afterwards. I think that's super great that the company reflects relationships completely because if you know the person and you know they're good business people, like Wanda says every week, then we know that we can trust the referral that we're giving. And I just thought it was really neat because these are people that I would never expect to do business with or just cross paths with in general. And so my goal actually for these coming few years was to be able to connect more in the community and do more community events, whatever that looks like. So I joined the first two. I got invited to be a substitute for a couple people after that, which was really neat. And then I knew I was going to join, so I signed up, and here we are now. So,
a couple things. Well, first, the last thing you mentioned was the substitute thing, right? Is like, so as VP, I mean, obviously, nothing goes by and gets approved without membership committee. But as VP, you know, that every time I go to the networking events, there's one tonight actually. Everyone's like, well, you have the most important job because you get to see you get to pick who joins the chapter, and then you got to make sure if they're not up to speed, you have to ask them to leave the chapter. So you're essentially cultivating the culture within the chapter. So, you know, it's a huge responsibility, but in your case, like when you mentioned like, oh, I got asked to substitute, like that's something I look at. Like if especially if it's last minute or a day before, if you're asked, hey, can you come substitute? And you show initiative that you want to be in that room, I'm already I'm already locked on like that person wants to be in this room. You know, one of our most recent members, I won't drop any names until he comes on and talks about it, but you know, as soon as he left the room the first meeting, his application was in immediately, and he was texting me the next day like, I have a check ready, who do I make it out to?
Love it.
And I'm like, that's the kind of attitude I need in this room. Is like, I want you to jump on this opportunity, because you know, like, it's weird to me in an off-sense manner is like, you know, you see all these new buildings around here. Eventually, when they're all up, I'm going to go knock on all their doors. And the people that will end up joining and benefiting are not the ones that sit there and say, oh, I don't know, I want to think about it, or I want to wait. Like, opportunity is literally knocking on your door. Are you going to answer it or not? Because someone else is, and you're going to miss out. So, secondly, let's talk about your presentation, because I thought it was great, especially, and I've complimented you on this before, which is, you know, when you stand up and give your 60 seconds, you seem like you've been doing this forever. Like, there's not a lot of training there. There doesn't seem like there's a lot of nerves. And then you got thrown right into doing your presentation within like the same month you joined. And I thought it was great.
Thanks.
So let's talk a little bit about your presentation, because I want people to see what you can actually do for them. So break down a little bit on, you don't have to go through the whole thing. Obviously, it's, you know, 5 to 10 minutes, but your presentation was basically how much normal people and most people pay for wedding planning, and how you can help with that. So give me a good estimate of what most people pay for wedding planning and how you can help with that and what your company does differently.
So typically in Orlando, at this point, for all the vendors that I mentioned yesterday, we kind of went through, you know, going through what does it cost for a photographer, catering, venue, all of that. I would say the median range, we're looking at between Probably $40,000 to $60,000. Now, majority of our couples are spending that, but we just, for example, like I mentioned, we also work with couples that have budgets under 20,000. We just finished a wedding for somebody that they only spent not even 13. So we're very flexible, and it all depends on the client's vision and what they have to spend. So having us as your team, because of our experience, our knowledge, our Rolodex of connections that we have.
I love that you like that word so much.
I love it. I think it's great. But also it's in one of our programs, like I said, that we use. It's called the Rolodex. So I like that they've carried that on. But we just have so many different connections, and we know so many different people in all these different categories. So if we have somebody that says we can only afford 20,000 or we can only afford 10, we may not necessarily be able to help them too much unless they're willing to really trust us. So our planning packages start at this amount. But we can help them with our vendor list, that we can even curate a custom vendor list to them that here's your whole wedding. Like, just hire these people, but you have to trust us that it's going to work.
Right.
Because, with something that's such a, I would say I'm speaking about 10,000 because it's such a low number, but it's doable. So people just have to be really flexible and really open to suggestions when they hire us for something that's either lower, and especially when it's a higher budget too, because they're trusting that these vendors that they're hiring are top notch, that they're the best of the best. So because of our experience in the wedding industry and just working with so many different vendors and vetting them, that's the most important part too, then we're able to just curate this very particular vendor team that's going to fit whoever the client is, that's going to match their vibe too, because not everybody, just because they have a $100,000 budget, doesn't mean they want the $10,000 wedding photographer just because they're luxury. Their vibe may not match. So on wedding day, they're not going to be, too friendly with each other. So you want to be able to match up the client with the vendor as well. So we kind of have a process of how we go through that, just making sure that the vendors are hitting all the marks for the client, and then the client is able to, pay for that service as well.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So let's unpack this process, because I'm interested, because these are the things that I love about my job, is working with people and figuring people out. So because everyone's like a Rubik's Cube, blindfolded in the dark with no stickers on it.
Yes.
So it's very interesting to me, like, first would be, so do you match, like, okay, here's $10,000 budget. Here's some, you're saying you would be like, here's some vendors that can do it for that. These vendors can also do it for that. You're just going to get a little less, things like that. So like you said, there's always wiggle room, and there's always a group of people to take care of this group of people, which is awesome. And obviously, like you said earlier, expanding your network is only going to help with that.
Exactly.
And then digging into the relationship side, you have a good relationship. Not that I'm advocating shortchanging your local businesses or anything like that, but these people will be like, hey, you know what? Amanda gives me plenty of business. I trust her. Like, I'm going to go give these people the best wedding they can get, and I'll do it for $5,000 or anything like that. So the one thing I really want to ask is, like, the people, right? Because I would liken the emotional state to signing a contract, and that's going to sound weird, but every time I get a really stressed out emotional person to sign a contract, getting them up to the point where they put pen to paper, and then as soon as they do that, all of it's washed off. Like, they were just stressed about making the decision. And, I was the best man at my best friend's wedding, and I watched his wife the day of going nuts. So, like, the question isn't, did they care too much up to that point, or did they not care after that point? But in your experience, is it just like, obviously everything has to go well. But once they're married, especially for the female, is it just kind of like, okay, I got it, done, it's over with, everything was great, obviously you want to add to that experience, but is it more just like, hey, not really necessary, but I'm glad it happened, and it, like, the emotional point of, like I said, likening it to a contract is like, once they sign, it's washed off. For the wedding party is like, once it's over with and they experience it, is it kind of washed off, and then they're like, you did it.
I think it's a little different for everybody. One thing I say, which is funny, is we kind of have to be a little bit of like chameleons when it comes to every single couple that we work with, because everybody's so different. But if we're just ourselves, I think that's what attracts our clients anyways. We're honest, good people, we want to help them. So but with the emotional wash off, I feel like after ceremony is when that all the jitters are gone.
Right,
You did
right.
it.
Yeah.
They're walking down, they're happy. And I would say probably 90% of our couples feel that like relief. I would say 10% they're just having the wedding because their parents are making them do it. So it's totally.
I didn't even know that was still a thing.
So
but okay.
that's where I would say, like you said, they're just. It happened, it's great,
Right.
we're moving on. But normally people are so excited for their day, especially the brides. They're just elated, they want everything to go right, they're excited for the day. And after the ceremony, they do their photos and they're ready to party. So that's usually the expressions that we'll get, like, where's my drink, basically.
Yeah.
So
And do you share that sentiment? I mean, I know you've been doing so many. For them, hopefully it's, okay, this is my first one, this is my only one, right? And they get to experience that. But for you, since you watch it all the time, are you kind of in the same state?
It's the same emotions every time. I cry every wedding, probably. The drama is real. But it's so relieving, which is the moment, like I'll go back to my story, how I started. When I worked at the venue as a venue manager, I played planner and venue. Don't do that. It's a lot of work. It's not, you shouldn't do that. But I got certified as a wedding planner. And so during that certification, I understood these are two different roles and I shouldn't be combining them. But nonetheless, when I was not as smart, I was doing both. And so I remember bringing the bride down the aisle and just like placing her long dress down and letting her go. And that was like the moment for me that I'm like, I think I can do this on my own. And so once I did that, like every single wedding, it's like the same feeling. Like I let them go, I say, okay, you're ready. And they go off to marry their spouse. And it's just really sweet to see. And it's just always the same emotion. And it's always fun to see them walking down and so happy. And it's always the same. I love it.
I have obviously, I'm pretty sure you've met Mike. He's subbed for me at BNI. If you haven't, you'll probably see him at some point. But, he's been a firefighter and he's almost to retirement. And then the reason he got into real estate was because he's like, I've seen so many people on their worst day every day for my whole life, my whole working life. Like, I want to see people on their best day.
Yeah.
And that's what you get to do.
Yeah.
So like you get to see a lot of people on their best day. Well, regardless of, I don't want to get too negative, but regardless of how it works out, that's still a very good day for them. And even if it works out, emotionally, they still know that. So super cool to me that you get to play such a huge role in someone's best day, even to the point of letting them plan their own day, which is awesome to me. And that's why I fell in love with real estate myself. It's just like, getting someone out of one situation and into another is where I found my passion. It's just like, please let me help you, because if you keep doing it this way, you're only going to be stuck in the same situation. And that's what I love about my job personally is, and I can liken this back to BNI, is like everyone in that room is growth mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I'm so growth mindset that I want other people to get into the growth mindset. That's the only way you're going to move forward. But I think it's awesome, especially in your industry, that you get to witness so many people's best day. It's easy for me to see why you do what you do in that regard. Okay, so quick off-the-cuff questions I usually ask people. You been in St. Cloud your whole life? Or
Not my whole life. I would say I didn't live in St. Cloud my whole life, but the church that I attend is like right on the border of St. Cloud and Kissimmee. So I've had friends here almost my whole life. I lived in Rhode Island until I was 9. We moved down here, so I say I'm a Floridian through and through.
You might as well. So I always ask this question to guests, like, what are some of your favorite local spots in St. Cloud? And some of them, like, I know you'll probably say John 3:16. I've had 3 other people say that, but go ahead.
I do love John 3:16 Cafe. Shout out to Christy, she's awesome. I also love Madeline's. Madeline's was here. I think they made 2 years when I moved down here. I can't remember how long they've been open, but I love going there as well. One of my favorite coffee places. And let's see what else. Oh my goodness, there's a new place called Terracotta. It's like Colombian bakery. It's divine.
I haven't seen that.
You have to check it out. It's so good. I love food, so those are probably my favorites. Loading Gastro, really yummy.
And all of those are downtown, which I like. That, you're plugging a lot downtown. So I'm a huge proprietor, and I love like really clever names.
Okay.
And Madeline's did switch to Madeline's, but I love the name
Yeah.
they had before, which was Southern
Yeah,
Grounds.
Southern
I thought that
Grounds.
was very catchy.
Yeah.
I was like, I like that. That's a good one. So yeah, I'm a sucker for like just really aptly and
Yeah.
funny and good name businesses and things like that.
Yeah.
So. Speaking on restaurants, I'll plug one of mine because every agent in the office, when I walk in with a Soldier City Grill burger,
I've
they're like,
never heard.
where did you get that?
Yeah.
And this is my point. This is why I bring it up. Because not a lot of people, it's not like an actual restaurant.
Okay.
Sean's set up in the mobile gas station at the end of Rumble.
Is
right
it
beside
a
the
ghost
Dunkin'.
kitchen? Is it a ghost kitchen, or he has an actual spot?
Yeah, no, he has an actual
Oh,
spot.
wow.
He used to be a food truck
Okay.
downtown, and now he's got the spot with the grill down there.
Nice.
But, you know, a lot of people like Mutt's,
Yep.
which is fine. Mutt's is good.
Sure.
But Sean's a better burger for half the price.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, I take all the agents there, and they're just like, why did I not know about
Yeah,
this?
we need to
So
try that.
Soldier City Grill in the gas station, in the mobile gas station.
Okay.
And then Devin and I always hit up Osaka at the end of this.
Ooh, I've never tried Osaka.
Yeah, Osaka's right here by
Yeah.
the Winn-Dixie. And then they just opened another location. Some of the same people that opened that one opened one by the neighborhood Walmart as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that one yet, but I've heard good things.
Yeah.
Because usually I had to travel all the way to Lake Nona to get sushi. Now I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Now I don't really have to do that.
Do you go to Maki Hibachi?
No, is that the one right outside the?
I think it's like Sam's or something.
Yeah. I used to go there when it first opened because I actually opened that PetSmart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because so I opened the one that used to be where the flea market is. That's the Ross, the Marshall,
Okay,
the PetSmart.
yeah.
So I opened that one when I worked at PetSmart when I first got a job there, and then I transferred to the Lake Nona store because I worked on Narcoossee.
Yeah.
So I opened the Lake Nona store too. And at that point, there was only the Walmart and the PetSmart and the
Yeah.
Sam's that was open. And
Yep.
now everything's
Now
gone up.
everything's there, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else in St. Cloud you would advise a newer person coming in to see or check out or do?
Yeah, I just think checking out all the small shops in downtown is really neat. We have a ton of different locations and they need some love, so
Yeah.
I always send them there. And then I feel like we have a really great, like since Breeze came, I feel like that's a really neat bar to hang out at if you were just looking for like a nightcap or something. And then, yeah, just hitting up all the bakeries like Terracotta, Fortuna, like those are just fun. I love coffee dates and just going to get coffee, so that's
Yeah.
like my go-to. If you're coming to St. Cloud, try out all the coffee shops, get like their pastries and just hang out.
Yeah, I would also plug the monthly market because I was just down there last night.
Yes, I missed it last night.
The monthly market's always good. I went down
Yeah.
there just to get food.
Yes.
And now I go down there and I'm always business mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm walking into all the new
That's smart.
businesses talking about B&I.
Yep,
Like
yep.
I'm the door-to-door B&I
Yes,
salesman.
you are.
But I think it's just because I believe in it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like, you know,
Yep.
you can't sell anything unless you believe
Exactly.
in it. And we were discussing earlier, you know, and I didn't get into the numbers. I got into them on visitor day, but you know, there's always that thing of like, oh, I don't want to spend $1,000 a year to belong to a referral group. Yeah,
Right.
well, your ROI is 3,000 or more.
Exactly.
Like
right.
where can you get that kind of ROI? Like
Yep.
you don't get it as a gambler. You
Yeah.
don't get it in real estate.
Exactly.
Like it's crazy to me.
That was one thing I didn't mention earlier, but another piece of the wedding industry is one way you can get business is being in wedding shows. And in a wedding show, you basically set up a booth. You're talking to a bunch of different couples that buy a ticket to attend this wedding show. But majority of everybody is looking for a discount. And so because we have a product that I feel is worth it and we know our worth, I don't love almost like that face-to-face, just trying to get a discount, just trying to see the deal kind of thing. Even though I can talk to a wall, I prefer to
Right.
like have a consultation, have a sit down, see what your needs are, etc. And investing in BNI is like it's expanding your network and you're getting leads that are already warm, hot, that you know this person's going to take care of you. They're
Yeah.
willing to pay your rate, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And sitting down with people in referrals from BNI is for me has been like I don't have to break through so many walls.
Right.
Like because there comes a point in my job where I stop being a realtor and I have to be a salesman.
Yeah.
And then nobody really trusts a salesman.
Yeah.
But also, like, we got to unpack so much. You have so many preconceived notions of what someone in my line of business does. I think, you know, I'll cap it off this way before we go into another short, but I think we're like either number 6 or number 4 on the least trusted professions.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that, and the crazy part is, our approval rating when someone works with an agent is over 90%.
Wow.
So it's like, it's such a huge contrast and turnaround.
Yep.
But I mean, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some
Make a good
people,
impression.
I'll make a joke about this, but some people trust cops because they're just in uniform, and then some of them can be assholes.
That's
and then you don't
very
trust
true.
cops anymore
Sadly.
at all.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it always comes down to the individual, but you know, you're going to liken those two in a little bit. Like, are you going to listen to hear someone out that you don't initially trust, or are you going to blindly trust someone? You know, I would lean more towards the latter, as like, especially if you have someone that's really wanting to get to know you.
Exactly.
And figure you out. So you had mentioned something earlier, and I found this interesting. The salesman side of my brain went off, because at some point you do have to have those conversations in your line of work. But your line of work, like, you know, there's so many people in my line of work that I can talk with that are just focused on the numbers because they do see the real estate, the investment side of real estate. And we've discussed this a lot because your husband's on that spectrum. But for you, being as what you do is completely emotional, how have you, no pun intended, even though there always is, how have you married those two things?
Yeah, so it all starts from our initial consultation. I actually I don't even remember the last consultation I've had, like talking to somebody that reached out as an inquiry, like looking for a planner for the past year, because I actually gave that to one of my girls as her duty for this year, as we were planning to have a child and all the fun things that comes with that. I needed to take a step back from one of my roles, and so she's been doing that. But just the other day, I got to have a consultation with somebody, and it starts from there because of like you said, at some point we have to become a salesperson. Which, if you do it right, it doesn't even sound salesy. You're just talking about what you do and what you can offer.
And you're also bringing truth to the table.
Right.
It's like, you know, I mean, if you know anything about whatever business you're in, you have to be bringing experience and truth to the table.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where we start. Initially, we start as, who are you? Like, talk to me about you. Why did you pick your wedding venue if they already have one? Give me a little bit about you. We'll talk a little bit about we do, but then we're going to send it back to you. So it's almost like a compliment sandwich kind of thing is how we approach it. So that's what I did. It felt funny to be doing a consultation just because I haven't, usually when people reach out, either they already know they're booking us or they want to sit down and talk. Those sit down and talks have all gone to Heather at this point, but this was just really fun to kind of like get back in the groove a little bit and just be honest with the client. Like, yes, we've worked at your venue. We love this about it, and this is how we can help you. You're trying to plan a wedding a little more South Florida. Well, here comes our expertise with our Central Florida vendors. We're going to save you a lot of money because if you book your vendors down there, you're going to be paying double or triple the price. So just kind of like talking through those pieces, even though it's a part of our like sales pitch, it's really just benefiting the customer and the client to know what we can do for them.
No, I agree. And you know, that essentially you're digging at like, okay, what's more important to you? Because you say you have a budget.
Yep.
I know what you want. We're going to try to get you as close to that as we possibly can. If you still want that and you want to pay the money, it is what it is. You know, like I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Because that was where I was getting to with a lot of my question. Because I can see, you know, there is no money investment on the other end of what you do. It's all emotional.
Yeah.
They're completely buying into how they feel and how they want to feel on that day.
Yeah.
So like, I guess a good question to follow that would be, like, let's say they have a $10,000 to $15,000 budget. Do they often hit that because they're investing emotionally?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say when we have the lower budgets, it's people that want a wedding. They just don't want to spend $1 billion, which is fine.
Right.
So I feel like it's a little less emotional and really more what can we get for like the best bang for our buck.
And more than likely, those people are probably like simple life anyways.
Exactly. Yeah. Typically, it's they're not as emotionally attached. They want a beautiful day,
Right.
but it's not. They know it's more like about them almost, and they don't need all the extra.
Yeah.
So that's where the difference comes in, where our $50,000 clients are like, no, this is my vision, and this is what I want to happen, and this is what I'm attached to.
No, I could see that. And
Yep.
I mean, I know people that have plenty of money, but they just want a backyard
Yeah,
wedding.
and that's fine.
Actually, one of my very good friends married her husband a long time ago, but they never had a ceremony. They're
Yeah.
just now going on like a ceremony celebration
Okay.
cruise this year.
Yeah.
So like, and they were married years ago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I know they have the money to do
Yeah.
it, but they're just like, you don't need it.
I have just this coming Saturday, my brother-in-law is getting married, and he's not doing anything flashy, you could say.
Right.
They're literally having like 20 of us at a nice Brazilian restaurant. My husband's actually going to do their ceremony,
Oh,
and
that
they're
was
going
what
to do
you were
it.
mentioning,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
They're going to do it right there in the private room. They're not even going to spend like $3,000 on their day. But their priorities are different. They're
Right.
younger. They want to save for a house, and they don't need all of
Yeah.
what they've seen done, and that's okay. So I support it all. I want people to have a wonderful day, no matter what budget it is, and
Yeah.
we're there to help them.
And they're going to do what they want
Right.
anyways. But no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And just off the cuff, you had mentioned your husband was super nervous about that.
Yeah. So well, he actually did a wedding last weekend, which is so funny because it was on a Thursday, and that's the one that he was really nervous about. And at that wedding, his brother was there, and at the wedding, they asked him to do it for this weekend.
Okay.
So now he's done two, or he's about to do two in the matter of a week, and he's more comfortable now after that
Yeah.
first one. Everyone thought he was a supernatural, like he just read from the paper and it was great. But yeah, this actually came afterwards, so
Yeah.
now he has another gig.
So has he enjoyed it? Like,
He liked it a lot. He was super nervous. Of course, he's not like when he was younger. His like pastor's wife was like, "Oh, you're gonna be a preacher one day." He's like, "No, I'm not." And he cannot like talk in front of people. He never finished college. We had to take speech was like a requirement, and we were just talking about this. He literally stopped going to college once he had to take that class. I remember us sitting down. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fail. I'm not gonna be able to do it." I'm like, "Oh, if that's what it takes for you to not finish college, okay." But that's how serious like his anxiety is. But because it was just such an honor to be able to do it for
Right,
our
of
friends, I
course.
think that really like helped. He had a whole script. He read it. He threw in like 2 jokes, which was like shocking because he was going off script.
yeah.
But he really enjoyed it, and he said yes to his brother, even though it's in front of even a smaller crowd. So
Right.
he's getting used to it a little
No,
bit.
that's super cool. And when I
Yeah.
mentioned I'm like a super growth mindset, like
Yeah.
I pay attention to things like
Yeah.
that because like it's so that whole story is super interesting to me, and the intricacies of it is because he was told his whole life or a lot of his life,
Right.
you're going to do public speaking.
Yeah.
And I, if I did dig into the psychology of that, that probably put a lot of pressure on him to public speak,
Yeah.
which now he's dealing with the anxiety when he's doing it.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about growth is like, you can feel it. Like
Yeah.
when you're right on that line of like, I'm not comfortable, but I
Yeah.
have to do this.
Yes.
And you're right on that line. That's where I feel like you're most in line with who you are and like who you need to be.
Yeah.
Because God, I didn't think I'd ever do any kind of public speaking.
Yeah.
But then when I stand up in front of the B&I room, I have to just switch something
Yeah.
on. It's just like, I have to be super direct
Yes.
and get this over with.
Yep.
Like, of course, I had jitters at first,
Yeah.
but I switch into that part of my personality that's just like, I have to get this done. Right now, I have to deliver this message. And
Yeah.
then other people in the room are just like I say to you, you look
Yeah.
like you've been doing this forever. But they say to me, like, you don't look nervous at all.
Yeah.
You look like you know exactly what you want to say. You say it, you're good.
Yeah.
And like, you're super inspirational when you do it. I'm like, what? Are we talking about
Yeah.
me? So I love that kind of growth and transition he's
Yeah.
actually going through right now. Because you said like, oh, he's super anxious. And,
Yeah.
and like Austin did his presentation yesterday
Yeah, he did great.
after you. And I complimented him.
Yeah.
I was joking with him at first because he texts me and he goes, how was my 5 minutes? I was like, you did a presentation today? And he was like, I hate you. I'm sure that's what he was thinking. But I'm like, dude, before you even, like when Nicole was reading your bio,
Yeah.
the last thing she said was, I have super bad anxiety. It's something no one knows about me.
Yeah.
And then you speak in front of a crowd. It's
Yeah.
like, that right there is
That
a
was
win.
super impressive,
Don't
yeah.
worry about like how you came off or
Right.
anything. Like,
You did that.
you're good.
Yeah.
You did that. Like, that's enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, you did great. Like, just doing that.
Yeah.
I always tell the new agents and everything else, focus on the step and not the
Yeah.
staircase. Like, if you, because I know, because I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think it comes with any business mindset, right? It's like you have this overachiever in you, and you're never really satisfied. So it's just like, but bringing it full circle back around to BNI and like-minded people is just like, oh no, I get you.
Yeah, we all get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
But it's super cool. I think you both did great yesterday. And you know, shout out to Austin. He's been on as well, and the growth I've seen him go through as well is like, and that's what fulfills me. Like, you know, I have a question I ask a lot of people when it comes to BNI, and I ask this at the networking events because the BNI book I read was like, come up with 3 questions that you want to ask people that are really true to you, like questions you would want to be asked people. And I asked you this a little bit, but like, why are you truly passionate about your business?
I think I'm truly passionate about helping people and helping people through relationships, because one of my, I have a bunch of reviews, different areas, and one of my reviews said that I wish that I had gone with all the vendors that Amanda recommended me. And she said specifically that all the vendors that I did were just awesome. They had great things to say about me, but they also delivered a great product. And that was in her review after her wedding. And so to me, that was such an important piece. And that was just at the beginning of my business. But that was such an important piece for me to take on with me through the rest of my career, because that just showed how amazing it is to have connections. So I want to be able to help people, but you know, the saying, help people. But genuinely, if I'm helping a bride or a couple to plan their day, I'm also helping the vendors that get the business as well.
Right. Yeah. You're the glue that's putting everything together,
which is
and
funny
holding
because
it together.
BNI is exactly that. So I just love it so much.
Yeah. And you would mention that when you first started, you were like, this is what I do.
It's what I do for a living. Yep.
Yeah. The second question would be, and I'll bring this full circle back around to why I ask it, but like, second question I love to ask people is like, and I ask this at networking events. So if you were at a networking event, I would put it this way, which is like, all right, tell me this, like, if all of your financial needs were taken care of, all of your family needs were taken care of somehow this week, like you hit the lottery or you got everything you wanted, would you still come back to the next networking event, and why?
I would, because I love working.
Right.
Oh, I just had the flu for like 2 weeks and it was absolutely miserable. I felt so unproductive. I hated it. And I just like to be productive.
Right.
But again, because I'm so passionate about what I do and I feel like everybody feels that, I just want to keep doing it. And I feel like we have just the beautiful position of having a company to be able to be that light in the wedding industry as well, or just anywhere we walk into. But it can get really ugly sometimes. And I feel like there just needs to be more happiness when it comes to wedding planning. And I feel like that's just an opportunity that we get to have, and I get to just be a missing piece with events that people just sometimes don't realize or see the value in. But that's my opportunity to be able to tell people why we're so valuable.
Yeah. And that's your value, right?
Yeah.
Like that's your value proposition. And that literally obviously is what brings you value.
Yeah.
So it's easy to, again, sell it or come forward with it. And I like that question because, you know, it's the same thing for me, right? It's like, would I still attend a BNI meeting after we hit our goals or we hit the next year's goals? Like, absolutely. Yeah. Because I love seeing the growth in people in the room. Like, you know, even when it was only 4 of us in a room when I was trying to launch this thing, I told everyone, you know, publicly, I'm like, look, this isn't about like, yeah, of course I'm here to make money, you know, like I'm a business, but for me, like, I don't know, it just triggered something in me. Is like, you have to do this. Yeah. You're the only one that can do this, and you need to get it done. Yeah. And then with that, I was like, you know, even if I'm still not the realtor in this chapter in 3 years, I still have the fact that I started this thing.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that's what I kind of get for, why I dig in with my clients is like, you know, the money is usually just a means to an end. But when you accomplish something, nobody can actually take it away from you. And that's kind of why I do my job and do everything I do, is like, I want you to accomplish something that nobody can take away from you. And I want it to be a part of your life. Yeah. And that's why I asked that question. It's like watching everyone and the growth they've gone through. Like Cleo, for example, like always, we're in here before BNI. I'm like, hey, you have 2 minutes today. What? Yeah. No, I can't do that. And then she gets up and she like crushes her
fine.
5-minute
Yeah,
presentation.
yeah.
I'm like, dude, like, you know, like getting people out of their own head of
Yeah.
like, you think you can't,
Yeah.
but you can do everything.
Yeah.
And that's why I ask a lot of those questions. The third one, I don't think I'm going to get to ask because apparently someone is.
What's going on?
They're still working on the whole building. Probably next door. I think there's a bakery going in next door.
Oh, really? Oh, fun.
Yeah. So you'll be over there.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'll cut it. I've had you for long enough,
Okay.
and I've got to get back to work. So, Amanda, thank you so much.
Of course.
We'll get more members in here eventually,
Yeah.
but I'm sure we'll sit down again.